Thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. Happy to have you here with us on this Friday night. The White House and President Trump's Republican supporters in Congress first said that the impeachment proceedings against President Trump were unfair because there had been no floor vote in the House authorizing the impeachment inquiry. That was their first objection. This isn't a real impeachment. It's unfair. There has been no floor vote. Then, the House held a floor vote authorizing the impeachment inquiry, and that took care of that objection. So then they needed a new one. Then they said the impeachment inquiry against President Trump was actually unfair because the hearings to collect evidence in the inquiry were conducted behind closed doors. That was it. That was the next objection. There are no public hearings. And they stormed the closed-door hearing room to make this point. But then after expressing that as their big concern in terms of the fairness of the hearings, then, again, the House decided that, well, they would hold public hearings. They would hold lots and lots of public hearings, hours and hours of them, almost too many hours for any one person to watch without getting a cramp. That meant it was time for a new objection. What the White House and the president's Republican supporters in Congress came up with next was the objection that the president and his legal team had not been invited to participate in the impeachment proceedings. So no floor vote, then there's a floor vote. No public hearings, then there's public hearings. So this was their sort of next good try. This is not fair. This isn't a real impeachment. The president has not been invited to participate. And then naturally, the president was invited to participate. Well, today, the Trump White House responded to that invitation to them to participate in the impeachment proceedings, and they said, actually, they have no intention of participating in the proceedings anyway. At least that's what we think this letter means. I wanted to put the letter up there full screen just because I wanted you to know why I was distracted. The signature on this letter is so enormous and weird. It's a little bit hard to focus on anything else in terms of the content of this letter, but basically what we believe is that this is a letter from the White House counsel saying, no, we're not going to participate in your little charade. We still consider it unfair. I mean, what that means is for a third straight time, the objections by the White House and the president's Republican supporters that this is all so unfair, I mean, those objections, one by one, have been overtaken by events, right? If you had taken them at their word at any point over this impeachment saga so far, you might have thought their objection to the impeachment was that there hadn't been a floor vote, or it was behind closed doors, or the president hadn't been invited. But when all of those things they were complaining about got corrected, right, when all of those things in real terms came around to what they said they wanted, the White House and the Republicans in Congress still objected. They still said, this is all so unfair, we'll have nothing to do with it. Because of that, I mean, someday someone will teach a first-year law school class about how to identify bad faith in negotiations by running through exactly what the Republican objections have been on process grounds to how these impeachment proceedings have gone forward. But now, having been through all of that, there been no floor vote, the closed-door proceedings, the president has been invited to, after going through all of that, they now have unveiled a new objection as to why President Trump cannot actually be subject to this impeachment proceeding. A new noble stand they are taking for fairness and the American way. They have rolled it out with our friends at the Fox News Channel.
The whole thing is a joke. It is, frankly, very, very close to what Clarence Thomas once described as a modern-day lynch mob. The Democrats have no interest in the facts. And really, on the eve of Christmas, it is really sad to see the dishonesty and the partisanship that the House Democrats are displaying.
On the eve of Christmas? It is Christmas time, you guys, which is no time for an impeachment. I mean, any other time of the year, this might be okay, but not, what is it? It's 19 days before Christmas? This is the new objection. If there's one rule that all Americans should be able to agree on, or Republicans at least have the decency to adhere to, it's the rule that you don't pursue impeachment proceedings against an American president in the holiday season. Not while the Yule log burns in the hearth. Not while the sleigh bells ring. Not while people are, decorating their Christmas trees. It's just against the rules.
Tom, the contrast could not have been more striking tonight. At the very moment the Republicans were releasing their 4 articles of impeachment, the president and first lady were lighting the national Christmas tree, festive, seemingly unconcerned.
In 1998, House Republicans released the 4 articles of impeachment they had been working on against President Clinton. They released those 4 articles of impeachment literally while President Clinton was in the act of lighting the national Christmas tree. Those impeachment proceedings against President Clinton were set in motion, of course, by the crusading Republican Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, who now is back here to let us know that Republicans at least have some sense of decency. They have some sense of the rules around what makes for a fair impeachment process and what doesn't. And frankly, Christmas time is part of what you have to consider.
And really, on the eve of Christmas, it is really sad to see the dishonesty and the partisanship that the House Democrats are displaying.
When the Republicans in 1998 released the draft articles of impeachment against President Clinton while he was lighting the national Christmas tree, it was 4 articles of impeachment that they released. When it came time to vote on those 4 articles of impeachment against President Clinton, 2 of them were voted down. 2 of them failed. But 2 of them went ahead on very close votes. There was an article on perjury where the vote was 228 to 206. There was also an article on obstruction that passed. That one was even closer, though. That one was 221 to 212. So 2 of the 4 passed. And under the Newt Gingrich, you can't impeach a president at Christmas time rule, just proclaimed on the Fox News channel this week, you should know that when it came time for the House to actually cast their votes on those impeachment articles, when it came time not just to introduce the articles, but for the House to vote on them, those votes took place on December 19th. Christmas week. I mean, they could have waited till after the Christmas holiday, but why would you do that? They apparently really wanted to do it right before Christmas, so much so that the House actually was called in on a Saturday to take those votes. It was strange enough timing that the NBC News archive footage of the network coverage of that historic impeachment vote against President Clinton is actually filed under golf, because it starts with an NBC anchor named Hannah Storm having to break in suddenly to the network's coverage of a Saturday afternoon golf match in order to announce that President Clinton was being impeached on the 19th of December.
Quite an athlete in his day. Hot.
Hello, everyone. Hannah Storm in New York. We will be returning to our coverage of the Lexus Challenge after a report from NBC News. An historic day for our country. And for the latest on the impeachment of President Clinton, we go to Tom Brokaw. Tom?
Thank you very much, Hannah. The president has been impeached on 2 articles in the House of Representatives.
It was December 19th, the Saturday before Christmas, 1998. That is timing that the Republican Party now apparently believes was just unconscionable. It's at least now not fair to pursue these impeachment proceedings against this president, given the holiday spirit. Never mind what we did before. And never mind all the other objections from them on supposed fairness grounds that have all been addressed now, one by one. All the things they complained about and said they want to change, they've all been changed. But they nevertheless continue to object. The main event now, the focus of what's about to happen in this presidency, the big deal at the heart of all of this is, of course, the factual and the evidentiary record that has been turned up in terms of President Trump's behavior. I mean, the sideshow, frankly, is this series of supposedly earnest objections to the process of this impeachment that keep getting thrown up by the White House and by the president's defenders, and then those objections keep getting rendered moot or rendered ridiculous one after the other. And so I would caution my friends in the media and those of us who are responsible for sort of tracking this on behalf of the media in this country that it's not necessarily worth continuing to follow each bad faith objection after all the previous bad faith objections have been shown to be in bad faith, right? I mean, to a certain extent, after somebody says this is something they really care about, it's then revealed as something they actually can't possibly care about. You should be cautious the next time they try to sell you that same soft soap.